These are the FENN brothers. There's 3 of them, the youngest one's fishing. Still not quite into the whole training and paddling thing. He's just been winging it out here with hardly any training. But these 2 boys have grown up through surf lifesaving. They started at the Pets, 6 years old.
6, 7.
6, 7, they started with junior lifesaving. They worked their way up. They're both South African lifesavers. Both got their SA colours, and they both got their SA colours for Surfski, and Matthew got SA colours also for K2 canoe marathon champs. So yeah, they're the future of the sport in general paddling. Yes, we've got the Hanks and the Corries and those guys, but these guys are the future generation, and they've come through. Josh recently got a 5th at the Molokai. Must be one of the best results ever by a youngster. He's 19 years old and he got a 5th. And he wasn't too far off the leaders, and it was a record year, so he really did well. So yeah, they decided to do more of a Q&A. I sprung this up on them this morning at breakfast, just because we wanted something different. You hear from the same people about paddling. These are 2 new guys. It's fresh. It's something different. It's a different perspective. They're both coached by Andy Burkett. He's a world marathon champion. So he's probably the strongest guy on flat water. We're hoping that he'll win worlds this year. So yeah, they've got a heap of experience for youngsters. So yeah,
Kick it off,
to you guys.
I have got nothing prepared at the moment, but we'll answer questions if you have any questions, on just tips on how to paddle downwinds. I've got a bit of advice I can throw around. But yeah, nothing planned at the moment. So if anyone wants to know anything about downwind paddling, go ahead and ask.
All right.
Yeah.
Yesterday I kept burying the nose of the boat. Like I was going and then got up some speed, and then the nose went down into something, and I stopped again. And then how do I prevent doing that?
Well, you want to sit at the top of the wave.
Yeah.
So instead of when you're riding it dropping down into the bottom at the hole, you want to stay on top until the bump in front of you, in front of the hole, gets smaller, and then you come down and you can actually go over that.
Okay.
Because if you go down too early and it's too big to go over, you're just going to end up burying and you'll get stuck. And then you have to wait until you fall off the back and go again. So you want to sit at the top, and then when it gets flatter in front of you and you feel like you can use the speed to get forward, then you go hard and you jump right. Yeah.
And
that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. But also, so if I try, so then the timing of when to stop paddling is the big.
I can't actually tell you exactly when.
Yeah, you feel it, right?
Yeah, you kind of. There's nothing you can't replace. Like knowledge, you can't replace time in the sea.
Yeah.
The more time you spend doing downwinds, you learn. So it's just the more time you spend out at sea, you'll eventually learn how to read when to run, when to go, and
Thank you.
But you will see the wave in front when there's a big hole. The wave in front of that will flatten at a point, and you can go. That will be the ideal time to go.
Right. Yeah. No. I think that is just when I start going. I'm so happy that it's going.
No, that's going. Yeah, you just want to keep.
And how do you slow down if you feel that you're dropping into the wave and you don't want to drop in? How do you slow down?
At that point,
it's too late.
Yeah, at that point you just want to be leaning back enough so that you don't dig. So your nose will be up, and you will go down, but your nose won't be under. So you just want to be leaning back.
Okay. Would you use your paddle to try to slow down the boat? No.
So anytime you're bracing, you always want to brace in front of your hip. So anytime you're bracing behind your hip to slow yourself down, that's very unstable. And a lot of the time, when breaking a paddle, a reverse stroke against the paddle brace is not great. So my biggest suggestion is your peripheral vision, and this is something I think it relates to your question as well a little bit, but a lot of people that come here for the first time, there's a lot of, I want to say stimulus that you have to deal with all at once. So there's wind, swell, waves, how fast you're paddling, the tilt of your boat, whether you're going uphill or downhill. There's a lot of all this information coming in, and how fast you can process all the information and when you paddle, when not to paddle, this type of thing. So a lot of the time, if you're ending up right up on the top of the swell and you're going to dive into a hole like that, you're actually a little bit too late. And a lot of the time, I find a lot of oaks are looking where they're going, so one directional line, instead of looking left and right into sort of your peripheral. So your first step is to understand where your eyes are looking, so not just to aim at one specific target. So your frame of reference is not the end of your nose. The frame of reference is at least sort of 45 degrees on either side of your nose. So if there's a massive big hole and you don't want to dive your nose hole, you have your vision 45 degrees on either side of you, and to take that nose and stick it outside of a hole and run round a hole or over something, or don't look straight in front of you the whole time. So that's the first thing. And then you were talking about when to stop paddling, when to start paddling. So your consciousness obviously in terms of sight is this visual stimulus, but then your second stimulus is the angle of your boat and it's not something you can see. So looking behind you to where a run's coming from is going to take your head off your center of gravity axis. So your head's your center of gravity, your head stays still and in front of you. That's where your balance comes from. Your head's going like this, you're unstable, gone. So head facing forwards, you're not going to look behind you, you're going to feel when that run picks your tail up and when you're going to have to paddle hard and when not to paddle. And I think the biggest mistake I've seen over the last 2 days of being here is people paddle for too long. So they paddle themselves into a wave, really only takes 2 strokes. If you're taking longer 2 strokes, you're going to be nose diving off the top of swells. So the reality is when you paddle is important, and the timing of those 1 or 2 really hard strokes to get you into a run is quite important, and that can only be felt, it can't be seen. So the feeling of the tail starting to lift, a lot of guys feel it in different areas. Like some people feel underneath their bum has started to lift, some people feel against their foot brackets in terms of your connection with the boat, some people feel a little bit more pressure on their feet, that feeling of the tail starting to lift, and a couple of hard strokes to get yourself in, and hopefully you can get yourself in early enough that you're not diving to a big hole, if that makes sense. So biggest advice I can give is understand what's around you. Your Dean says your biggest safety tool is your situational awareness. So looking like this and understanding what's around. So yes, there's a navigational aspect of going down the course, but understanding what's here, and then also understanding the tilt of your boat. Obviously there's no point whatsoever in paddling hard when you're facing uphill. And also, if you're paddling for too long for a run, you're kind of scratching on the top. Sometimes it's good just to let that thing go and just catch the next one. There's always one behind it. There's another one. Answer the question? Cool.
Thank you.
So don't have to go straight into a hole. Look that way. Go around it.
But doesn't that, like everybody's constantly telling you nose in the hole, like you're supposed to get your nose in that hole.
So just your general aspect around why they say that is the steepest part of the run, where you're going to get the most amount of push of going forwards, is always going to be where the hole is. So where you see a nice big deep hole, you can stick your nose in that hole, you're going to be beyond the steepest part of the run.
And then it's going to dig in.
So
and
that's the
there's
trick.
gonna be water.
So most people, if that thing picks you up and you're sitting way on the top and then you dive into the holes, that's not really the idea of what we mean by sticking your nose in a hole. So if you start from scratch, and if you what about big one? So this is your boat, and you now sort of, the swells are coming underneath you, you're now facing uphill. I've got a dynamic of, I don't like to stop paddling ever.
Yeah.
So a lot of guys will brace and surf with their paddle around me, but the reality is you're not really ready to paddle if your hands are on your lap, or so up traditionally also helps my balance and coordination if my paddle stroke continues the whole time. But what changes is how much power I'm putting into every stroke. So if you can think, if I'm going uphill, I'm only really tapping, putting 10% power in. As it starts to get a little bit flatter, I'm probably putting 20 or 30% power in. If I'm on the dead flat, probably 50% power. The second that tail starts to lift, I'm putting about 150% power into 2 strokes, but no more than 2 strokes. I'm not physically strong enough or fit enough to sustain 150% power for very long. So I want to take advantage of that, run the best I can, so as that thing starts to pick me up, I'm going to get my boat momentum going forwards. After that, my power's off. I'm tapping, like I'm back to 10% power again. There's no power orientation that's going into pushing me forwards. So when I'm going downhill now I'm getting pushed by the run, and what a lot of people are saying is stick your nose in that hole. In the ocean, you have the most dynamic environment I've ever found in life. No 2 days are the same. Some days you get more wind, some days you get more swell. It's all over the place. And that trough or hole that you think is going to move. Don't go in a straight line. And what they're trying to say is to get from here, now you're in the run, is to track and follow that hole to some extent, or if you can, to use the speed that you're in on the run that you've got to throw yourself into another trough. So there's two options: follow the trough that you're in, or use your speed and find another trough. I like finding another trough because so I go run rate. The more runs you catch, catching one run for 100 meters is actually not that effective. I'd rather catch 20 runs for 20 meters, and it'll take me a lot further, and it'll keep my average speed higher than catching one big massive run. So we focus a lot on so if you talk to a lot of the top guys, they talk about winning and losing a race. It's not how many runs they catch, it's how many they miss. So if you miss one, how are you going to get that one back? So like Hank, these oaks, you'll understand, when they're racing, if you miss one and an oak gets a gap on you, sometimes it can take 10 Ks to catch that one run back, because until he misses one, you're reeling it even. So not about how many runs how many you catch. Everyone's going to catch runs. How many you miss. So the idea is to keep my run rate up. The second I'm in a run, I'm going to start looking to use that boat speed to catch another one. Boat speed from here to catch another one. So to get my run rate as high as possible. But a lot of the time when you don't get the timing right, so specific to your question, if you now miss those two strokes, if this tail goes to lift and now you're right up at the top, you're now almost too late to catch that run, and you are going to dive your nose. What we call wallow. So you do dive your nose into a hole. A lot of water goes through the cockpit, you stall your momentum. So the idea is to get into a run earlier and to get off that run earlier into another one. Does it make sense?
Yeah, but then for that, you wouldn't use 50% when, like the boat goes up, or by the time the boat is like there,
Yeah.
you have to pick it up more, right? So that you can stay there.
I don't think you can understand the vitalness of when those two strokes of power go in. If they go in too early, they're wasted, and if they go in too late, they're almost wasted. So
I have to get that.
So majority of people in the mass of the field paddle at 80% for 80% of the time. And I'd rather you paddle at 20% for 80% of the time, and the 20% that you would normally go really easy or hard, you're using your intensity and specific spurts to make use of the ocean. So going at 80% is actually going down, and it's pretty much useless to you. I'd rather you go really slowly, and then when you get a run, go as hard as you can. So it's dynamic. So you talk about how much power goes into each stroke and how effortless that needs to be. It needs to be very effortless until those two strokes hit, and then a lot of power in just as the thing starts to lift you. The earlier you get into the run as well, the more control you're going to have over your boat. So your rudder's going to be in the water because you're a little bit further down the bump at that stage of the run, and being at the top. A lot of the time I find a lot of like crest at the top of the run, rudder comes out, it's a little bit more difficult to control your direction. You're a little bit more exposed to the elements, but little cross chops and bumps. The earlier you get in, the better.
So those two strokes could differ depending. If you're too far back, two strokes isn't quite going to be enough. You might need a few more. You don't count two strokes until you feel your nose goes down. Then you can lay back and let the run do the work. But as soon as your tail lifts, so you'll be flat, as soon as it starts lifting, that's when you start. And whether it takes 2 or 5, as soon as your nose dips and goes down, then you feel comfortable.
Perfectly, it's going to take 2 strokes. If you miss it a little bit, might take 5. Like, but in a perfect world, 2 strokes is normally enough to catch a run. If you miss time a little bit, sometimes it can take more.
How long did you do? What time did you have on the Molokai?
3:17.
Right. And but it takes quite a bit of concentration to just keep catching those runs. So how do you do that for such
And he
a
had a
long
really
time?
good finish to the race as well.
I did actually. So I wouldn't recommend my strategy for the race. I kind of started off slower than I was hoping for. So I just started off slowly, like to see, because I don't know how long I was going to last, kind of thing. Like I didn't want to get to like 30 k's and have 20 k's left and can't even paddle anymore. So I just started off, conserved my energy, got halfway, and I was like, yeah, I'm still feeling fine. I was kind of still in touch with people, like I was 11th, 12th. And yeah, like, so everyone splits up, you know, it's that big channel, like you're between islands. So there were people to the left, people to the right, and I'm like in the middle. I'm like, okay, who did I decide to go to? Just thought, because the wind was coming over the side, like I'd just head up into it, and then when we got closer, it would be a more direct line. And I caught up to Michael Booth and Macca, and we kind of all stayed together for a few kilometers. Yeah, they looked a little bit tired, so I kind of helped my confidence a bit. I was like, we all hurt in the same though. Yeah, so I managed to link them. Like it was hard work, but I just managed to get like one bump and then hold that and make a gap, and then from there just kind of, I was like, oh, I'm racing like the best in the world, so to be in front of them, it like kind of got into my head quite a lot, and I was just like, yeah, let's go for it. Yeah, and it just, like obviously 3 hours is a long race, so it takes a lot of focus. You start like daydreaming, you start looking around. Yeah, it's just, the runs are quite different too. It's more, like these are harder working runs, if that makes sense. They're a bit flatter.
Yeah.
So these ones you have to do a whole lot more of those little intervals to try to get onto them, like those 2 perfect strokes, like you have to get it. These ones, you could kind of, like they do a lot more linking,
right.
So you could surf for a lot longer. So that also helped. Yeah, I don't know, just started off slowly, had energy, I didn't burn myself out, so, you know, like once you're broken, you can't actually...
You watch your splits across the channel.
Yeah.
So 3 splits versus beginning and end. Were you consistent throughout?
Yeah, they were consistent.
Yeah. So that's 50k is a long way to concentrate. So if you can be even splits, that's a good thing.
Did you practice before the long run? I imagine you practiced before, but
yeah, we did some distance. Yeah, we did. Yeah.
There's a couple of faces I recognize there. So how many people have come before? Before? 4. Yeah. Okay, cool. You've all been in downwind conditions and rougher stuff. It's not like you're complete now.
So I have a question today. It felt like the first bit was just wonderful, you know, linking runs and going really fast, and then we stopped somewhere the fastest slow to regroup, and from there it was still 5 minutes around. Going around the point, there was this one place where it was really a bit like all over the place and chaotic, and I swamped it quite a bit. I spoke to Barry afterwards a bit about it as well. Did anybody else experience that sort of like bumpy bit there?
Just before the kites.
Yes.
Just
yes.
yeah, so that's because it suddenly gets shallow. That's where they used to have that pass getting in.
Okay.
Usually they have
You gotta
that.
realize
That's
you've also changed direction there as well. So there's a couple of things. One, there's current flowing out that fast. So there's one, you're now having to deal with a little bit of current. Not a lot, but there's a little bit of current. So that makes things a little bit more confused.
Yeah.
But believe it or not, it's an optical illusion, you're not thinking about it. You're actually changing direction in that area and you're starting to head more north or upwards in terms of going around the corner of the island. So your direction to the swell is changing. And the third factor is the wind is now ever so slightly side on to as well.
Yes.
So the conditions start to change. I actually, in my race tactic, because it is, I'm racing you. but I actually quite like at the back of LeMorne to actually come quite close to LeMorne, sort of because the further I head out to sea, I find I almost hit a bit of crosswind, sort of side on to me, and it gets quite uncomfortable sometimes with that little bit of side on wind, and the swell not really going directly behind you anymore. And I think if you went wider, you probably might find a couple of more runs, but I find I lose a bit of rhythm there sometimes. So I actually quite like going as if I was going into LeMorne on the back of those waves, and then kind of yeah.
If you're at his level of experience, then maybe that would be awesome. But otherwise, I think.
So I'm not scared of breaking waves. So like I see whitewater and I was like,
I'm terrified
yeah.
of breaking
Some people I'm terrified of breaking waves. So yeah, depends on your risk orientation. Yeah. But yeah. So people don't realize how different the conditions are just in our downwind section. So people don't realize at Beta Cup there's a river valley there that comes out there, and the wind changes off Beta Cup. It actually starts going a little bit more offshore than. So, like you'll have in the course of a 10k or 12k downwind from here to LeMorne, you're probably going to have, you can break that up into 4 sections and have 4 little slightly different pieces of conditions. So I find I run really well till Beta Cup, and then always off Beta Cup, I try and use the wind coming out of Beta Cup to actually take me a little bit out to sea, and I kind of use that condition where it is a little bit more offshore and use some of that wind to get me a little bit out, and then it almost lines me up a little bit better for LeMorne if I've used a bit of the wind chop out of Beta Cup.
Big to know.
On a Barry. But yeah, it all always changes. Like even the conditions from yesterday today were so different. Like I think we had less wind today than we did yesterday, but I felt the conditions were better today than yesterday.
Yeah, we lost the speeds.
Why do you think that was?
The wind was taking you directly to where we wanted to go today. That's the way I felt it.
So the trick is you've got 2 different elements. You've got groundswell and you've got wind.
Yeah.
So yes, the wind was going in that direction, but we were able to there was a ton more south groundswell today. So the difference between yesterday and today is the wind yesterday was going in exactly the same direction, but the swell was parallel to the wind. So the wind's going this way and the swell's going the same direction. Now today, that was yesterday, today we had south swell and the wind, so the 2 different directions, and in a Surfski you can find little cracks between the 2 and it's more dynamic. So today you can surf a wind swell and then a ground swell and then a wind swell and a ground swell. So there's 2 different dynamics there, and it's easier to link a smaller wind swell in those higher speeds is actually because you're surfing a ground swell rather than a wind chop. So a wind chop will only go a certain speed and will only be a certain steepness, where the ground swell moves double the speed of a wind swell. So you've been able to surf a wind swell into ground swell, and that ground swell is going double as fast, and that's why the speeds would be higher today than yesterday, and the wind was less. So it's because you're actually surfing open ocean swell rather than just wind chop. Yeah.
And today, the swell was better it was better to stay outside than inside, because if you say that the ground swell is coming from the ground, sure. So was it better to stay near the morn today?
To be really honest, the course, the way we are racing it at the moment, only really has between 10 and 12 k's of downwind section, and it doesn't pay to go too wide or too shallow in terms of your navigation, because you're never going to make it back up. So for us, like in the past, the first year we raced here, we raced all the way from a river mouth, what do you remember what that thing's called, up the north there, and we had a 30k downwind. Say again? Yeah, like way up and it was a 30k downwind section. And then your line was really important, because if you went a little bit further out to sea, you could take advantage of more swell. But in such a short space of 12 k's, to negate and paddle a k offshore, you're never going to make that amount of time back in a race scenario. So as far as I'm concerned, most of the top guys on Saturday will be within 200 meters line of each other and pretty directish line towards LeMorne. I think a shallow line could be not the greatest in terms of racing line, because the last little bit as you get towards the waves at LeMorne, if you have to tack too much at that last section, it's not really good. So you'll notice a lot of the oaks, as soon as they pass this wave, will tack a little bit left, or beta cups start to tack out, and just to negate that last K into the, it can be really slow if you end up going side on up to the waves. But if you take a bird's eye line between the pass going out, and most of the top guys will be from a rum line perspective within 200 meters of that rum line most of the time, because it's quite short. At Molokai, they were 50 k's across the channel. The guys can be 4 k's from each other in terms of line. Like it's completely different. But for this week, it's not gonna mean too much going
So the
inside.
shortest will be the best.
Not the shortest, just
Straight line.
yeah,
Straight line,
yeah.
straight line. Okay.
You're never really ever going straight. You're always catching little
Sure.
runs. But
You want to go
yeah.
straight.
So is there any shortcut to learning how to ride ride down with the swell? Look, there's this video that was going around with, it's like a little red arrow showing there's the little gate. You want to get through that little. It's almost like gates and so on.
I battle with those types of things because it has absolutely no practicality to it. I like to teach out there and
Can
showing
you
someone
teach somebody
practically.
while you're next to them? Can you do that?
To some extent, yeah. Yeah, it's not an easy thing to show someone a diagram and then go in the ocean, because just my personal perspective is no 2 days in the ocean ever the same. One day you got more wind, one day you got more swell, one day you got a bit of current. So like you never have a perfect scenario of a run like that where you've got a gap.
Let's say I wanted to learn from you, would it be better to go behind you in a double or into singles, and we just go out and you say,
I think
I
a
notice you're
combination.
stalling, I want you to turn, want you at speed, try and turn before you go down the thing, whatever.
I think a combination of it. I think paddling in a double does help in certain scenarios. Like we'll take someone that's quite competent and then show him certain techniques that we'll use. Like for example, your question about diving your nose into a hole. Like you can show someone what to look for and where to aim in certain scenarios, but there's no better way just to go in a single and play and learn how the water moves. And yeah, the more time you spend in the ocean, the more you're gonna learn. And yeah, so double does help, but like in the course of a month's worth of training, I would do one double session with someone. I wouldn't do. It's not something you do every day. Play. The best word I can say is play. I've been to East London, to the town these oaks live in, and when they were kids, like they're still 90s, when they were small, we used to go for a paddle in the afternoon, and they'd come in from the paddle and go and grab a life-saving Malu board and go and play for an extra hour, and just surfing waves, spending time in the ocean. And that ocean experience has sort of progressed from swimming, boards, skis, into downwind racing and all kinds of other stuff, but it's the same principles as any craft in the ocean. And I'll go down to my local break and surf waves for an hour at a time, just because I enjoy playing in the ocean. And you'll learn just as much from playing as you will a big downwind. Yeah, learn how your ski reacts to different bumps and that type of thing. Yokes play plenty.
So you can't replace time at sea.
Yeah. They spend more time in the ocean than I would. Yeah. They're racking up like hours in a month. Like, it's quite hard to compete with the amount of time they spend in the ocean.
What's the part of your training on flat water and the part training in downwind?
Actually, recently I've done about 95% of my training on the river, because I just had SA Marathon champs, so all of our training sessions were on the river. So anywhere between 10 to 18 k's of sessions would range, but yeah, most of it was on the river. We barely went into the sea. So
Same for you, Josh?
Yeah, we got our one group, so we kind of all trained together. So originally, you know the doozy?
Yeah.
That marathon race? So our squad is called the Tortoise Squad. I don't know why. But yeah, so we are in tortoises.
because we race so fast.
Yeah. And we just changed it so it was originally the doozy, so obviously that was all on the river, and then it was Molokai, so we changed most of our sessions into the sea, and then we'd do like out and backs, like 20k out and backs, and just like time in the ocean, getting to know everything, because you can't beat time in the ocean basically. But yeah, like river training on the flats is probably one of the best training sessions because it's hard.
It's honest.
You can't really get away, like you can't put your paddles down and just like catch a run, like if you put your paddles down you stop. So I think river training or flat water training is probably the best training, but to learn like how to downwind and catch runs, yeah, you need to spend time in the sea.
But for the last part of which is almost flat water.
Yeah.
Any tips for getting that boat to go there, because it doesn't really want to. It feels like it doesn't want to.
Yeah.
If you look closely, there are lots of small runs.
Right.
So they won't be very big,
Yeah.
but you'll see a bump in front of you about this big in little holes. Try and catch the little ones because
Okay.
they will get
They
you
will
going
help.
maybe 1 or 2 k's faster. If you can ride those, they are hard work, but
Yeah.
if you can ride those, it will help a lot.
Okay.
I actually said something to Naz when we were out there yesterday, that a lot of people when they are in open ocean bumps, to some extent lose a little bit of their form by trying to take those 2 strokes that I've been talking about. So I've got a little trigger system with most paddlers grip the paddle and pull with their arm really hard to pull into a run or a bump. And what that does is your hand, when it's too tense, relates to tension up your arm, so into your tricep, up into your neck and your shoulders, and that's going to take a lot of energy, and by the time you get to that flat water section you're going to be really stiff and you're not necessarily, or you're going to be too tired to retain your form. So I think the section around the back there, the person that's been able to paddle as effectively physically as possible is probably going to have a little bit more energy. That energy is going to relate into better technique in the flat water section. So I think your focus as you round Le Morne is to start to think about what you're doing in terms of your technique. Try not to let your hands drop, especially a lot of the time people now you've got side on or into the headwinds, and guys go like that and the head drops, hands drop, and they start paddling with their arms. So when it starts to get hard and a little bit cuck, you need to turn your brain on and start thinking about what you're doing. So think about your technique, how the paddle's going in the water, try and get a good catch with each stroke. Be efficient with your technique in that section is probably a good idea. And the guys that are able to use the downwind to the water to the best ability are probably going to be in a better condition when they get to that section to be able to still be able to paddle hard.
Just follow those people.
I have a question just to take care of your energy, to keep your energy at maximum. When do you decide that you should go on paddling? If you take a small bump, for example, sometimes you have to go on paddling with your stick. So what is different? When do you decide that now I have to go on paddling, if not I will lose it? Oh no, it's okay. That's the problem I always have.
Loaded question. So every day in the ocean is different, and every day is going to be slightly different. So it's hard to me to say it's going to take this or that. And it's hard. The best one, I learned this from my dad. My dad, when he paddles out on an average day, if we're paddling down the coastline in Durban, we paddle parallel to the coast all the time. And sometimes we'll need a tack out to sea. He won't. He'll catch a run straight away, and he'll get into a little bit of a rhythm straight away. One, the angles, he will assess what the angles are each day. So you're normally going to have here later in the week, if we get a bit of south wind, it's going to be over your left shoulder to see where that angle of the run is. So to catch a run straight away, assess where your angles are. It also gets you into a bit of paddling rhythm to get your breath back from probably a hard effort on the inside of the reef. And finding those parameters of how much you need to paddle for a run are going to be different on every day. But you want to assess that quite quickly early on in the paddle and come up with a game plan early on. So if you take 5 strokes into a run and you miss it, and you think, geez, I can't do that all day, you're going to have to reassess your parameters for each day and your sort of goals for that paddle on each paddle. So sometimes you're going to be able to catch a wave with 2 strokes, sometimes 10 strokes. And to understand how much energy you've got is going to adapt for each different day in the ocean. But yeah, it's difficult. So it depends on the direction of the swell, how much effort it's taking to catch runs, and maintaining that energy to some extent is going to be different on different days. Yeah.
This is my 10th year being a sweep boat at the back. So I've picked up a lot, not pro paddler stuff, not you guys, but a lot of what the back people do wrong. And there's a lot. Okay, I haven't seen you guys on the water, but I've seen a few of these faces, four of them actually.
Yesterday you saw.
The big thing's momentum. What you do is you break your momentum. So you break the flow. The ocean's got a natural flow, and that's the wind and the swell. You break what you're doing often. Whether it's fatigue, could be the last bit when you're getting tired, your momentum goes. So that momentum's also sometimes technique. Sometimes technique goes for a ball of chalk because you're so nervous. Your balance, maybe you were in the wrong boat, not stable. So your balance is gone, your footrest is moved, your momentum's gone. You're not with the flow of the ocean. But I had guys earlier today saying, no, I need a surf rudder for my bluefin. I've been paddling a Bonito, 4.2 meters with a little low profile rudder. You don't need a rudder, you can lean a boat. If a rudder breaks, you can still get to the shore with your paddle. You can get there. There's a lot of guys that don't have rudders on boats. They use plastics and they can do a downwind and they'll be fine. You can put ank on a bluefin. You're quicker than a lot of people, probably me. I'm on a Elite S. It's not the boat, it's not the equipment, it's time and flow in the ocean. So you've got to think, how am I breaking that flow? Am I zigzagging too much? I often say to the guys that are with me, just run in a straight line. You can catch the run, but come back. Don't go 45, 45, 45. Don't put yourself in the situation where you're too shallow and I'm saying, go left, there's a wave coming up in front of you. And you carry on like that and then you just, oh, now I see that foam, Dennis.
Yeah. Oh, the white stuff, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. So don't put yourself in that situation. Follow the group. The people I'm talking about don't follow the main group. Follow these guys are all going to be in front of, I'm going to be on a boat, so I'll be right in front. But these guys will all be in front of you. I can guarantee that unless something goes horribly wrong, follow the line. It's a straight line.
But you can't see them, they're too far.
No, you can. But some of you are talking and saying, I'm going to surf a wave over the reef. Can I go there?
The first time I paddled, aim for the furthest left.
Follow the
This is all for you.
So you will move. But on most days, there are kiteboarders out there, and the guy who's furthest to the left will not be in the pass.
But just really simple for all of you. When you paddle out the pass tomorrow and you're going to go out this paddle, catch one run. Understand what direction that run is going. And it's going to be a wind run. The first run, the smaller run you get is going to be a wind run. And I guarantee you that wind run has been going towards the reef. And you assess the angle of your first run. Okay. You're going to assess your navigation point of the end of LEWIN as a relative to the direction of that run. And you're going to understand 90% of the angles that you're going to have to deal with on that. The rest of your paddle, you're going to assess in the first run that you catch. Literally. You'll know how, if it's going very close to the reef, literally in your first run, and it's 45 degrees right, you know you're going to have to do a lot of tacking to the left in terms of your navigation. If it goes, you catch your first run and you're still seeing LEWIN in the front and you go in the right direction, you're going to, hey, lackadated, I'm not going to have to tack left at all. But I promise you now, your, like Dean says before every paddle, your situational awareness is so important to your paddling. If you understand the environment and what you're seeing coming in front of you in terms of what you see, one run is enough to understand what the next 10 Ks is going to look like. Whether how much I'm tacking I'm going to do, how much runs I'm going to catch, where the other people are going to be, what to expect in surf. Paddling out of this pass, you know what the surf's going to be like in the morning. Easy. If it's 15 foot here, it's going to be 15 foot there. Like, it's really simple. Just understand what's coming at you from an information perspective and try and think and process all this stuff. So literally catch one run, check what direction it's going, have a look at where your heading is. The rest is simple. Seriously. Don't complicate it. Stay
just
on
relax,
line.
enjoy it.
Yeah.
In a warm ocean, you've got no worries.
Except the reef.
Sharks.
That's all.
Otherwise, just relax and enjoy it. I mean,
There's no sharks.
no sharks, not really.
I know.
Just enjoy it. I mean, you all know how to paddle. I mean, we've had no one here that doesn't know how to paddle. But don't doubt yourselves. That's the biggest thing. When it gets in your head.
So I like what Trevor said about momentum, and this is one of the key things I think most people are missing, is that when you catch a run, it's free miles. Like, it's free speed. Like, so what a lot of the top guys do well is they use that speed effectively. They're going to take that speed and make the next run a little bit more effortless. So by the time they get to Le Mans, they've taken half the amount of strokes that you have, and they've used the ocean that much better. But the reality is, if you catch one run, is to use the speed of that run to catch another and another. And I find a lot of the guys catch one run, and they just so dogmatically want to surf that run for as long as possible. And it's quite a weird scenario with how the mindset of some of the top paddlers think. I don't know, I was paddling behind even the German Gordon yesterday, and there's a lot of even someone that comes from Germany that doesn't see a lot of swell, he's already picking up certain things here about when to paddle, when not to paddle, and then the dynamic of using his speed. So even though he's a big, powerful oak, he hardly paddled in front of me for about a K. And he took two strokes, and he doesn't have to use that massive amount of power the whole time. He's going to use the ocean as much as he can, save that power for when he needs it. Okay. So the idea is to use your speed, catch one run, and the second that run is pushing you, so tail starts to lift, you take your true strokes, you're in. I'm already thinking where the next run is. I'm not thinking about the run I'm on. The one I'm on, I've caught. It's lekker. I'm getting free speed now. Now I'm going to use that speed, and I'm going to use that to find the next one. And that's where
you don't try to milk that run for long as possible.
No. That's the worst thing you can do. So your run rate, I say again, I do not want to catch a 500 meter run. I want to catch 100 5-meter runs or 20 100-meter runs. The shorter the run, the better, because you're going to get yourself, use the speed of this one to get into another one, and how many runs you're catching is more important than how long they are. So the second that run is now pushing me and I've got that 3 miles, I'm going to use that speed straight away to make sure that I'm putting myself in a position to catch the next one straight away.
Yeah. The long runs look much better on the GoPro.
Let me tell you, when you catch 20 in a row and you've got 4 minutes and it's over a K and you've taken 4 strokes over a K, that's lekker. And your GPS is on Strava has got way better splits. So the biggest thing is keep your momentum. That's the biggest thing I think I find. A lot of guys break their momentum. You're right, Trav.
GoPros. Put your GoPro on and leave it on. If the battery goes flat, so be it. But don't try and... Not everyone's like Barry, you can stop paddling and film. A lot of you can't do that.
Definitely not.
Alec Wing, he'll stop paddling completely and film, and he'll carry... His momentum's gone. So all that work that he did, it's all gone.
The only time I ever take the GoPro out of my mouth is when I'm freewheeling. So I'm on a run and I'm sitting still. Like I'm cruising down a run and then I can film with it. The second I start to drop my momentum, I'm paddling to the next run. I don't.
So do you have something around your neck so it doesn't fall off, or just in your mouth?
If we talk a little bit about flat water, what are the different steps that you remember between the beginning to now, the level you have now, for the good to make the good technique of paddling?
To be honest, I've been told my technique's really bad. I've got quite a bad lean in my boat, and every couple of months I get really bad lower back pains because of it. So I don't have too much to say on technique. Mine's awful, but just do what you're comfortable with. So I don't know if you have words on that.
Technique's an interesting one. So what I try and do in a week's paddling, so I work and I maybe get 4 sessions a week. And I try and build an element of skill into those 4 sessions that I'm doing. So for me, I paddle on a Monday and a Wednesday morning on the flat, and I try and obviously do something
on the flat water that helps my technique and my speed, because you're on the flat you can focus on certain things. And then I paddle twice a week in the ocean. On a Thursday and a Saturday we do one downwind session and one sort of like out and back session in the ocean. And I think the biggest thing I can say, whether you're paddling in downwind conditions or paddling on the flat, try and add element of skill into your session. So for doing something consciously to add to whatever you're doing. So for example, we'll do a 2,000 meter interval session, so we do 2,000 repeats. That is 2,000 meters is at intensity that I can focus on a couple of things. If I'm doing a 2-minute interval, it's not 10 minutes, it's 2 minutes. It's very hard for me to focus where my hands are in 2 minutes. So it depends on what your session is, but try and add an element of skill into your sessions. So I focus just the little things for me is my hand positions. So when your paddling technique, there's 4 hand positions that I like to check, and I try and within a session just check on one of them at a time. You can't multitask and do 50 things all at once, but I personally check on one of them. So I do a 2,000 and I'll focus on one of those hand positions in that 2,000. The next 2,000 I'll focus on another hand position somewhere else in the stroke. So when you put the paddle in, is to make sure that you've got a locked straight arm. So if you put it in with a bent arm, that's not really any good, because you're never going to get it out by hip. So just focus on where the paddle goes in for the first interval. Your second interval is to make sure that you're paddling with the right muscle group. So to the next interval, I'll focus on pulling from my left instead of my hand. The next interval, to try and get the paddle out by the time it gets in the hip. If you pull past your hip, you're going to rock and pull yourself over a little bit. It's unstable. So the next interval, I'll focus on the paddle exit, and then the next interval, I'll focus on my top hand to make sure that it's not dropping. So there's little elements of skill that you can add into those sessions where possible. And a lot of our longer weekend paddles where you're going a little bit less intense are easier to focus on technique than the short, hard racing sessions in terms of what you're doing. So each is a little different. I like to add in pieces of surf. So we'll do a one surf session where we're actually in the waves, and we'll do our speed stuff in the surf to make them fun, and then your longer paddles we'll try and do downwind. But we try and add surf into sessions to make it skill oriented.
So you don't make videos to see exactly the good.
As long as there's a couple of core basics that, like one of their training partners, he's our K1 flatwater marathon champion and world champion, Andy Burkett. Yeah, he coaches them. Andy, for a very long time, everyone said his technique was terrible, but he does a couple of very core basics very well. So the paddle angle when it goes in is very upright. He engages the right muscle groups in the catch, and his glide of his boat is very good. So there's core basics. Outside of those core basics, everyone paddles a little bit differently. If you watch Hank McGregor come paddle past you, and then you watch Matthew Bowman come paddle past you, and then you watch Joshy come paddle past you, and they are 1K away, I'll tell you which one is which because of the little intricacies in their strokes. Joshy's got long arms. Matthew Bowman sits very upright, and Hank has Hank uses his postural chain very well in his technique and stroke. A lot of his power comes from his glutes, not just his shoulders. So each guy will be, but as long as the paddle goes in the right position, so it goes in well, it exits well, and you're using the right muscle groups in terms of your technique, you are going to have an individual technique that is different to everyone, as long as you're doing a couple of core basics right. That's kind of the thing to focus on.
But like today, I do think taking videos and photos of yourself does help. Like after so many years of paddling, not at Surfski, but just paddling generally, today I videoed myself and saw that I lift water when I exit.
Coming too far.
I don't slice it up.
So that's
And I'm just like, what?
so that's from holding onto the paddle too long in the technique. So your catch is up in the front, that's where your power is. The second your catch is over, which is literally, people don't realize your catch is between 3 and 6 inches. Your entire paddling stroke is 3 or 6 inches. So as it goes in, you've got power in the front. You do not put power on the paddle after that. The rest is a glide. So your boat's going to go past your paddle, and the paddle drifts away and out the water. People don't realize that your paddle actually exits going forwards. So your paddle, when you stick it in, so it goes in like so. As it comes down the paddle, as it comes down the stroke, you're actually pulling past your paddle, and your paddle exits going forwards, not backwards.
But I don't quite know what you mean. So as you
So the place that you put your paddle in,
yeah,
your paddle exits in front of where it goes in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Comme en natation.
So it doesn't, no, your paddle plants, and in the catch there's power. It's an optical illusion that you pull your paddle through the water is incorrect. Your paddle plants and it catches in the water, and it actually exits as you pass it going forwards. So the picking up of water is you hanging onto it with your hand and your wrist and pulling
Pulling it
in the second
so that
half.
it just-
In the second half of the stroke, yeah. So once the catch is done, you need to relax.
When your when your paddle gets past your waist,
Yeah.
there's no point in pulling there. Most of your power is from your knee, just in front of your knee to your hip. So you don't want to be putting it too far forward, but you want to be getting it in, and then when the paddles,
Yeah. In with a straight arm, bruh.
when it's just in front of your knee to your hip is where you want to be putting all of your weight, and then when your paddle gets to your hip,
Out.
you can just release it. Yeah.
If you're in a K2, you paddle.
Yeah.
They have like drawbars, right? Where you pull.
Yeah.
And do you use that in a Surfski? Pulling or yeah?
Not as much actually.
No?
Mine's quite loose.
Okay.
I don't prefer, I don't have a pull bar in my canoe. I don't know. I should. I just don't.
Okay.
So from when I started paddling up until now, I still don't have one.
Okay.
Only in the K2.
Yeah.
So I'll use it just because it helps with my balance.
Yeah.
Because I have a bit of a lean with someone.
Do you come from a kayaking background or?
No.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just used to not using one. So,
I have one of the Nilos with the bar. So I really like it. But
yeah, it's all about what you
I
use. I
can
mean,
pull,
whatever is comfortable for you works. But I choose not to use one just because I don't use one when I train.
Yeah.
But if you're really comfortable with one in a Nello, or if you use it a lot in your ski, if you like it tight, just whatever you're comfortable with is going to work.
So Hank has his very tight, like his feet are tight in it. I don't like that tight. I'll just explain something that's a little bit different from your K1 to your Surfski. So in a K1, you've got your pressure is normally on the top half of your foot against the bar. So that changes quite drastically in a Surfski, and specifically around the muscle groups you use to balance a boat in a Surfski are a little different. So you have a full plate, and the biggest pressure that you have against that plate is actually on the heel part of the body, and it's very specific over the muscle groups you use to balance. So in your postural chain and your legs, the muscles that you use to balance a Surfski are your hamstring and glute muscles, the ones on the bottom. Okay, and your quad is what I call an anti-balance muscle. It's the one that makes. So if you see a real novice climbing a boat and they paddle off and the boat starts to tilt, and the person actually jerks the boat back up, and that's what we call secondary stability is negative. So primary stability is when you're on the flat and it's all very nice and smooth, how stable that feels when it's on the flat. But going downwind, we use a lot of what we call secondary stability. So if the boat leans itself over, how easily that boat has righted itself is the second element of stability and how the boat rolls around. So obviously in downwind paddling in rough sea conditions, a boat's going to be thrown around all over the place, specifically going over waves. There's also a hinge. It's not a two-dimensional axis this way, it's a three-dimensional axis forwards and backwards, and that all hinges here. So the biggest thing I want to say is your contact with your heel activates your hamstring and your glute muscle. So anytime you push too hard, you can do it in your seat now. If you point your toe like that, it tightens up your quad. You can even sit here and do it. And that quad muscle is anti-balance. That makes you really stiff and not so lucky in a downwind. So if you want to relax that toe and push your heel down in the reverse, tuck the toe up and heel down, that activates hamstring and glutes, and those are the really good paddling muscles, your balance muscles on the bottom. So in terms of where your feet sit and straps and pedals and everything that goes on in front of you, the biggest thing I want to say is
heels must have a really nice contact with the boat, and that's actually how we control the boat. So if I get knocked over to my left, I'm going to push down on my right heel, and that hamstring and glute is what's going to pull the boat back underneath me. Okay. So contact with your heels is important.
Also, don't change your paddles. Don't get caught up in hype, commercialism and stuff.
0 degrees.
A small little paddle is just the same as a big bracha or something. Tana's knows, she felt it today. That's why she was maybe flicking lots of water, because she took a bigger blade. It's not going to make you, Matthew for years.
This is the first year I'm paddling
Matthew
without a
for
guppy paddle.
years used to guppy paddle. And he flew.
Last year, end of last year, I went to Worlds with a guppy paddle.
Yeah. little baby paddle. Don't get caught up
So
in the
what
hype.
is guppy paddle?
Big
Small
guppy,
blades.
so
Kids.
little
No,
kids.
for
So,
junior, okay.
don't
So
get
the paddle I learned with is the paddle I still used last year.
For junior.
at the elite. Why I'm saying this is because I learned the hard way. I started with life saving, and then we're on a 4 similar to a Bradshaw 4. Big, lots of scoop, lots of power. I was a small little junior. I used that for my first 5 years of paddling. Then I saw Keith FENN using like a mid-wing shape, the 3. The epic mid-wing, your flat, not lots of concave, and it was just so much easier. Obviously now there's all the Yantex and the Gurras and Carbonologies and a whole lot of shapes, but don't go and try and use the same paddle Hank will use, or Barry, or Josh, or Matt. Find a paddle, but my advice is get a small blade to start.
And length as well. The shorter the trend toward the moment is to go a lot shorter than previously you ever thought.
Yeah.
So like obviously there's natural trends in terms of where guys paddle and a girls paddle should be, and the norms, and I find a lot of girls pick up a guy's paddle and off they go, and it's probably 10 centimeters too long, yeah,
So-
too long to
So
what
what is your length, all of you?
I change.
Yeah, I also changed quite a bit.
I'm 210 at the moment.
So flat
What do you
water
use
I'll
this
go
one?
215, and then out at sea I normally go 230.
So I'm pretty similar to Josh. We're both quite tall. So I spoke to Brendan Russ today, a little shorter than us. He paddles with an Odin S, which is a small gamma, at 209. Yeah. I'm on a medium at between 212 and 213 most of the time. At the moment I'm feeling quite good, so today was 213. Yeah, there's absolutely no reason to have
But when conditions are
Herman-
really big,
shorter.
really, my paddle doesn't reach the water most of the time. I'm like hitting the side because my paddle hasn't touched water. It's just air. I'm like,
So you gotta realize, so your length of your paddle in your boat is normally determined by if you're sitting in your boat from the underneath of your arm to the water. So that's why in a K1, or he's on flat water, he sits a little higher in the K1, so you have that more space to lengthen your paddle. But the reality is, when it's rougher, you're actually closer to a lot of the bumps and where your stroke's going to be taken. If you're on super smooth flat water, traditionally sitting a little higher, you higher off the water a little bit longer. So on the flat, if it's dead flat, I can go up to 215. But the second I'm in downwind conditions, I need to shorten that down to 213. And like we have different types of conditions in Durban. On a southwest, when the runs line up, I can go to 213. If the east blows, I'm down to 211 sometimes. So Herman is a big guy. You actually will see Herman paddling this week. Herman paddles with an epic mid-wing at 209 to 210.
So I scored him. He's got
Yeah, I use for longer paddles, I'm on 207. Is what the shortest mine goes.
my
Yeah.
paddle's 206.
So a girl should be 10. So 2 centimeters shorter than 2 meters. So 1998.
198. That's good.
202, 203 in terms of the range of what most girls should be on. So Jenna Ward, she raced our flat water marathons last week. Jenna paddles when she does flat water marathon at 203 and in the ocean at 2 meter paddle with a Odin S. So yeah, you don't need long paddles.
I started paddling last year, so and then I bought a second-hand Epic from a flat water paddler, and that was the biggest blade they had.
Throw
And
it
it was
away.
215 to 225.
Throw it away.
So no, it broke 2 weeks ago.
There we go.
So, but But that's what I learned to pedal with.
Can feel. Can I make a suggestion? You don't have to have tons of grips, but tomorrow take a bit of surfboard wax. Just rub a little bit of surfboard wax on the shaft, and it'll help your hands grip a little bit better. To change and put a grip on your pedal at this stage of the week, I don't like to change too much.
No, I'll just use the other pedal.
Yeah, not a great thing to change. But just a bit of surfboard wax sometimes will help your hands grip.
Okay,
That's it from me.
thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Don't
for
stop
sharing.
asking questions this
Just
week.
one last question for both of you. Do you have a special physical preparation, plus all your surf skiing and kayak on the river? Do you have specific things? Do you have a coach for?
Yeah, we do.
But you do specific
How's your
physical.
Before the race, like on the day
No,
or
no,
weeks
in
preparation?
all your
lifestyle.
preparation,
Your
all
training
the
program,
time.
basically. What is your
Do
training
you do
program?
we have a bit of
musculation,
cross-training,
yoga?
we'll
I
do-
don't know.
Running, a lot of running is involved.
Yeah.
Generally.
Their coach is a very good runner.
Our coach is a really good runner, and he's won the doozy many times, and that consists of running. So
Okay.
he does a lot of running, and he encourages us to do it as well, which just really helps. Because I find my heart rate gets a lot higher when I run.
Yeah.
If I sprint running, it'll get close to 200, whereas if I sprint paddling, it won't even get to 170. So I find running, you can push yourself a lot more, and it's really good training. And then also life-saving. We do a lot of swimming.
Yeah,
Life-saving.
but you don't make stretching or musculation or even meditation. I don't know, yoga or mental preparation.
I do, yeah, we do quite a lot of stretching, and I go to a lady to, every now and then I'll do a UV blanket, so I pretty much just sweat. She has a few things she does for me, so like she'll do a back massage, like a sports massage on my back, and then she'll give me like instructions of what to put on it before races. So I do have external help, which helps a lot.
Haley's arriving tonight, and she's doing a talk tomorrow afternoon
Oh, yes, yeah.
on her
We've
program.
been-
So she's a qualified biokineticist, assistant.
Yeah, we did
Probably
that.
much better than all of us than answering those questions.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
So I've got some weaknesses, and not injuries, but things that I need to do in my preparation to prevent injuries. So I was explaining just now about how we balance in hamstrings and glutes. I've got very, very weak glute muscles, and hamstrings are not very strong. And I battle if those muscles are not activating properly, it affects my paddling. So I do a little bit of outside the boat work on my hamstrings and glutes to try and make sure that the muscles are firing correctly and that they're healthy.
Like squats and things like this?
No, so I do a little bit of exercises in the gym. So I do some activation deadlifts and squats to get the muscles to fire. Not heavy weights and big lots of that type of stuff, but we do specific stuff in the gym to help with that. And then before and after I paddle, I do a lot of stretching on the same muscles. The guy that I'm rooming with, Phil Smith, he spends 1 hour in the gym every day while he's here, just on a foam roller and stretching and yoga. Now he's in the gym now. I said, "Are you coming to coaching?" He's like, "No, I'm going to the gym." So he spends at least 1 hour a day while he's here, making sure his body is. But I spend maybe 5 or 10 minutes before I paddle, just doing some stretches on my hamstrings and my glutes, on my legs, and it helps me in the boat. Yeah. But everyone is a little different. I know Matthew Bowman, a big guy, and he's got very strong. He battles with his rotator cuff and the shoulder muscles.
Yeah.
So he has a stretchy cord that he brings to the race, and he will do little shoulder exercises to help his shoulders, to warm his shoulder up before he paddles. Everyone is a little different, but so that's what Haley actually does, and she will analyze and do an assessment on body movements, and she will have a recommendation for you guys and a bit much better insight into those things. So I've actually trained in the gym with Haley before World Champs 2 or 3 years ago. I wasn't going very well and I needed some help, and she made sure my body worked really nicely. Now it's better, so I do a little bit less, but yeah, having your body work effectively in the boat is quite important. So the way you sit in the boat, your leg length,